Good morning, rise and freedom. I'm Austin Peterson. You're watching and listening to the Wake Up America show at wakeupAmericaShow.com. Glad to have you here. Happy, I guess, what we're calling de facto Monday. Welcome to the show. Hope you're feeling well today. Let's get the energy up. We're going to bust through it. It's a 4-day week for a lot of you. But you know what? I'm actually thinking, because I worked yesterday on the holiday, I might actually take a day off later on in the week. I know. Don't be upset. What do we boo? Sometimes I get days off too. I'm thinking about going and taking maybe Thursday off, and I'll try and be back in time for Friday's show. But I think I'm gonna do some fishing with Dad. Get some trout with me and my nephew and father. My wife and I got a smoker over the holiday weekend, and I want to smoke some fish. I like to smoke the meats. Remember that weird video of Mark Zuckerberg where he's like, I like to smoke the meats, but he's like very android robotic. I like to smoke the meats. I'll find that video for you probably during a commercial break and play it for you a little bit later. It's funny. Well, in like a weird way. Speaking of weird, boy, violence sure exploded over the holiday season. 9 people were shot, including minors, as Memorial Day gunfire erupted in Hollywood Beach, Florida. That was just one of many violent incidents that broke out over the holiday weekend. Even myself had a little bit of a scare, a run-in yesterday with 3 hoods, 3 ruffians, 3 rapscallions, scalawags who drove up onto my property yesterday with an ATV. And they were young people, so I thought to myself, you know what? They're just trying to enjoy their Memorial Day. And I thought, okay, I'm just going to let it go. And then one of them pulled out a gun and started pointing it around on my property. And I was like, oh, God. Well, it just so happens that I had just finished cleaning my World War II M1 Garand. And so, and I was wearing my American flag tank top. You know how it is when 3 ruffians show up with on your property with a gun, and you're wearing your American flag tank top and holding your World War II M1 Garand. You know how it is. You know, just an average Monday for me, I guess. But things didn't get too crazy, so I just, I told them to leave, and they did, and they cursed me and hurled expletives at me the entire way. I've got the 7-second video of the incident because my Ring camera also happened to be rolling. Most folks move to the country for peace and quiet. I know. That's what I would like to see. Speaking of weird, AP. Yeah, that is all. No, it's very true, Miss Friend. We're glad to have you here today. Very weird, but how dare you? How's the working out? Ha ha ha. Well, I am working out a lot. I'm just also eating a lot as well. So I'm beefy and muscly, but I'm also chunky. My wife thinks I'm beautiful, and that's all that matters. Apparently this weekend, a girl has died from a new social media trend, not fit enough to drink, or I guess eat Tide Pods is what the kids were doing. I thought maybe drinking Clorox. 13-year-old girl has died from a new social media trend called chroming, right? What is chroming, and is it something that you have to freak out about? We'll talk about that this morning at 7:20. 13-year-old girl dying from chroming. This is apparently the new social media trend, the new TikTok trend. Why not just drink straight up bleach? Kohl's faces a shopper uproar after becoming the latest retailer to market LGBT clothing. LGBTQ. Is the Q really necessary? You would think the Q is it should just all be Q, right? Because isn't I don't know. Can I even say that name, or is this an our word thing and I'm going to get pulled off of YouTube? Several bodysuits designed for newborn babies featured LGBTQ messaging. And of course, people are outraged. And we're going to talk about it. At 7:30 this morning, I've got a guest. His name is Chris Spangle. You know him from We Are Libertarians. Are you excited to hear from Chris? Chris is always so good. He's got a really sharp mind, and he is like me, a fellow podcaster. He does this for a living, and we're going to talk to Chris this morning at 7:30 about the DeSantis versus Trump battle. And I'm sure it's going to be, already know what he's going to say. It's going to be a plague on both your houses, he's going to say. And then I'm going to ask him about what he thinks about the Libertarian Party and if they have something to offer, because that's how Chris and I met. We were both Libertarian Party activists back in the day. And I'm going to ask him what he thinks about what the LP might have to offer next year with the Mises Caucus takeover, Dave Smith for president, right? Everybody's got to be getting excited about that, right? Right?
No, God! No, God, please, no!
Okay.
No!
Well, hey, listen, I know a lot of people are big fans of Dave Smith, and I know a lot of people really like to have that protest vote. But I wonder what Chris Spangle has to say about it. We'll hear from him this morning at 7:30, and that should be a good interview. At 8 o'clock today, we're going to speak to the lovely Camellia Peterson. I'm excited to talk to her.
No,
Oh,
God!
wrong one.
No!
Wrong one. No. Yeah, we're excited for Camellia. Yes. Camellia will join us this morning at 8 o'clock, and we'll talk to her about the debt ceiling deal and exactly what is in it. We'll talk about what's in it. We have to read the bill to find out what's in it. One Patriot listener, one is joining us this morning over on Rumble. Good morning, One Patriot. Nice to see you here today. We appreciate you. Thanks for being that first commenter up there. And if you're one of the over 20 people watching us over on Rumble Live right now, do us a favor, click that like button and drop a comment. Help us to spread the message of economic freedom and personal liberty. Same for our friends over on the Cantina crew on YouTube as well. Make sure you're clicking that like button to help us to grow. We want to continue to spread the message and freedom, and it doesn't take very much. All you got to do is click that like button. All right. At 8:30 today, if you missed my interview with Josie, the redheaded libertarian, yesterday about how to fight the woke nonsense as a libertarian, then we will have I'll replay that interview for you today at 8:30 a.m. Good morning to Cheeky Mayor, Quest Fanning, Corey C., Chris Morrill, Maria Krabs, Mary Kramer, Farmer Farr, Dan Snow, Tolly Owens, and Miss Wren, who I think I've got everybody that's commenting over there as well already. So glad to have you all here today. Let's go ahead and start with the news. 4 children, including a 1-year-old, were among 9 people who were shot and wounded when gunfire erupted near a Florida beach packed with Memorial Day revelers. Let's take a look at some of the video that we've got over here on this incident. Gunfire had erupted after 2 groups of men got into an altercation at the Hollywood Beach boardwalk. Look at this. Several men had been fighting in front of a row of stores when one pulled a gun and fired. Some of the gunshot victims had been people who were innocent who were just caught in the crossfire, according to Hollywood police. Authorities originally said one person was in custody and another suspect was being sought. But during a press conference, the police said they were sending out photos of people they believe were involved in the shooting. They didn't say how many gunmen were involved. The ages of the 4 minors who were shot ranged between 1 and 17 years old. This is from a press conference from the Hollywood police. The adult victims were aged 25 to 65. 8 of the 9 victims, including the 1-year-old, are in stable condition with one person in surgery, according to the police. Hollywood Mayor Josh Levy said during the press conference he was saddened and angered by the shooting. People enjoy a holiday weekend on the beach with their families and have people in complete reckless disregard for the safety of the public and have an altercation with guns in a public setting with thousands of people around them is reckless, he said, thanking the first responders and Good Samaritans for helping the wounded victims. Now, some of you already know that I had a little incident over the weekend as well, and I saw that there was a story. It was like the Saturday morning of the holiday weekend. There was a shot. There was a shooting that happened in Chicago on the beach. Apparently, people go to Lake Michigan. I didn't know this. Stephanie had to fill me in on this one, but just an outbreak of violence, an orgy of violence across the entire United States. Thankfully, the incident that happened at my house didn't descend into violence. It was just such weird timing, and maybe there is a God, because if so, he must like me a lot, because it just so happened. And some of you who follow my Twitter probably saw this, but I decided that I needed to take out my guns and do some shooting yesterday. And it just so happened that my Japanese Arisaka and my M1 Garand both needed cleaning. So whenever my guns need to be cleaned, I usually shoot them, right? So shoot them and then you clean them, right? Because I'd noticed like a little tinge of rust on my Japanese gun. So I was like, all right, this is a perfect opportunity to get out there. I had some nice clean ammo, and I was just sitting down ringing my steel target at about 100 yards. And after I was done, I was sitting on my back porch all set up. And when I was a kid, I used to hate cleaning my guns because I thought it was boring. And now for some reason, I find it really like kind of a Zen thing, something that I really enjoy. So I was just sitting on the back deck. Stephanie, my lovely wife, was grilling some barbecue chicken and some corn, and we're just kind of enjoying there, sitting back on the back deck with our French bulldogs. And I just happened to be wearing my American flag tank top because, it's Memorial Day and I'm feeling patriotic and I'm shooting my M1 Garand and just having a good time. Well, every once in a while, we'll have people who come onto our property. It can sometimes be a little difficult to tell that it's private property. There's kind of like there's a suburban neighborhood that's not too far from our where we live, and we live on about 5.5 acres with a little creek that runs in the back of our property. So every once in a while, you'll see kids like wandering through the property and things like that. And I used to do stuff like that all the time, so I don't get all butthurt about it. We just keep an eye on them and let the neighbors know that there are kids walking around their property because sometimes we are out shooting and we want to make sure that we know that there might be somebody on the property, right? It's for safety's sake. And so yesterday we're sitting on the back deck, and all of a sudden these three young people on an ATV roll up onto my land, just top speed, roll right up onto my property. I was like, well, that's fairly ballsy of them. And they probably couldn't see me because I was a little bit obscure around the corner, and I've got my M1 Garand, which is the gun that won World War II, the beautiful battle rifle, just in excellent condition, 1944 a civilian marksmanship program, just re-arsenaled with the CMP, beautiful firearm. And I'm just enjoying it. It smells, I mean, delicious. I know it would be a sacrilege to like chop it up and put it in the smoker, but can you imagine what like barbecue ribs or like smoked brisket would taste like if you were to take like the wood from an M1 Garand? Okay, so take one that's not like whole, but like one that's already like broken and stuff like that, and like use the wood chips from that. Wouldn't Can you imagine what barbecue ribs would taste like? God, that would be, I don't know. I just think that'd be like heaven. Anyways, so I digress. Well, anyway, so these three kids, they roll up onto my property. I think one was a teenager, one was a little kid, and then the other one I think might have been a younger teenager. But I couldn't tell; they were about 100 yards away, and I didn't have my binoculars on me or anything like that, and I don't have sights scope on an M1 Garand. So I just sat there for a little bit, just thinking to myself, okay, well, they're just kids, or maybe they're just trying to have fun. It's no big deal or whatever. And I just, then I don't know what it was. I just had some sneaking suspicion. I was like, what if they have a gun? And sure as shooting, one of them pulls out a gun, looked like a Glock, couldn't really tell, and starts pointing it around, waving it around on my property. I'm just like, so of course my M1 Garand isn't loaded, so I grab a clip and I slam it into the M1 Garand. And well, this, I'll play the video clip for you. It's not very long. I think the funniest part of this video is that my French bulldog decides to jump into the fray, and you can see him in it. But thankfully nothing happened. Nobody wants to fill out all the paperwork that you have to fill with and go through all the court issues or things like that. Be like, why did you shoot him and stuff like that? It's like they're 100 yards away with a pistol, and I have an M1 Garand. Like, there's no need for to escalate that kind of violence. Anyways, take a look. You can see my giant badonkadonk in the beginning of this video. Isn't that really the best part? Look at that beautiful big old booty. Watch this. You probably can't. You can't hear it, can you? Hold on, I'm coming. Hold on, I'm coming. Well, don't you wave. Hold on, here we go.
My property?
There it is.
Is that a gun you were pointing on my property? Sure looked like it.
Here it is.
Hey guys, what you doing? Okay. Did you bring a gun with you onto my property? Is that a gun you were pointing on my property?
Is that a gun you were pointing on my property? I was asking.
Sure looked like it.
Sure looked like it. Yeah, they lied to me, said they didn't have a gun. They didn't bring a gun on my property. Of course, makes me more suspicious because I saw them pointing the gun around on my property.
Did you bring a gun with you onto my property?
See the French bulldog running over? That's got to be the best part of the video right there.
On my property?
This is how the neighborhood kids start
like
calling
me.
you Old Man Peterson in a reverent and fearful way. Dude, it has very much
Guys,
reminded people of that movie,
run.
Gran Torino, with Clint Eastwood. He's like, get off my lawn. Yeah,
Did you
that's
bring a
good
gun
stuff.
with you onto my property?
Honestly, it doesn't get much better than that. That's Memorial Day for you. All right, when we get back, 13-year-old girl dies from chroming. It's the newest social media trend that kids have decided to take up as dumb ways to die. Talking about dumb ways to die. We'll be back with more on the Wake Up America Show at wakeupAmericaShow.com.
I like shooting things, but whenever I can't shoot something, I like to cut things. My life isn't all about shooting and stabbing and cutting, though. Sometimes I have to do actual work, but when I work, I still like to have fun. And there's nothing less fun than trying to cut with a crappy knife. Thankfully, from the ancient sect of Christian knights, who also loved cutting and stabbing, comes a new implement that has received my personal blessing, the Templar knife. Like the ancient sword of Excalibur, you don't choose a Templar knife, it chooses you. You just decide what kind you want on the website first, however, and then order it online, and then it chooses you. The Templar knife comes in a variety of shapes. As a man of culture and taste, I have decided I will never use a terrible knife again. And thanks to the inspiration provided by this excellent product, I have decided to launch a new crusade against anyone using less than superior knives. Join me, brothers and sisters, by visiting uppercuttactical.com/pages/Templar-knives. That's a lot of slashes. For that, you'll need a Templar knife. For 10% off, use code AP for Liberty and join me in a quest for glory, for liberty, for Christendom, for the Templar knife. Get yours today.
Fire.
Hello, this is Barack Obama, and let me tell you why Austin Peterson stinks, and you should never pay attention to anything that he has to say. First of all, he's a libertarian, and we all know libertarians are idiots. They don't realize how important government is to everything that we do. I recently became aware that Austin has opened up a libertarian shop at apeforlibertyshop.com. Now, I'm asking you as a personal favor to me that you never ever visit apeforlibertyshop.com. With all of the great Liberty merchandise there, the last thing that we need to do is to get people spreading this message around the country, because then they might start thinking that they don't need government. And that's the last thing that good Democrats like us want. So if you love democracy, like me, and hate freedom, then don't visit AP for Liberty Shop. Like I said, whatever you do, do not visit aporlibertyshop.com. I'm Barack Obama, and I approve this message.
When I was in foster care, I never knew when I would have to move, so I always had my suitcase ready to go. Then one day, I was adopted. My new parents opened their hearts and home to me. My parents cook my favorite breakfast for me every morning. My parents take me on trips I never thought I would go on. They gave me a home and an even better reason to use that suitcase. My parents aren't perfect, but they're perfect for me.
I would remind you that extremism in the defense of liberty is no vice.
It is better to settle these matters in the courts than on the streets, and new laws are needed at every level. But law alone cannot make men see right.
I'm like, what's that? You'd never.
Sorry about that. Chroming, the newest social media trend. I must have been chroming there. A 13-year-old Australian girl who died from chroming. Her family has urged action to prevent similar deaths from occurring. Good morning. I'm Austin Peterson. Welcome to the Wake Up America show. We're glad to have you here. Make sure you smash that like button and subscribe if you enjoy the content that you're watching here today. We're always grateful to have a nice big Rumble audience this morning. Let's give it up to our Rumblers. Thanks so much for tuning in here today. If you are watching us over on Rumble, make sure you click that like button and subscribe to the channel to help us spread the message of freedom. And it's been great to see. You know, for a while, we started the Wake Up America show last September. And for a while, our average viewership across all platforms was about 20 to 30 people in the morning. And there's always this kind of like, sort of internalized anxiety that you feel, right? You're like, okay, you just got to grow. You just got to be consistent. You just got to keep building and growing. And now in the mornings, we're pushing up now towards almost 100 people on average across all of the platforms watching us live each day. That's exciting. 1, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. So 3, 4, 5 times more people watching us in the mornings every single day. And Rumble's definitely played a big part of that. I do miss my Twitter audience. We used to be able to live stream over there as well, and we'd get several thousand views over there. But unfortunately, Elon Musk took that away, and nobody told me what's going on over there. So maybe they'll bring back live streaming one day. Who knows? And then we'll have way bigger audience. Nice to see you here, Jared Pierce. Welcome to the show. Bert Crash is here joining us today. I guess a lot of you are tuning in because you want to see that video of the Memorial Day. Non-event. I would call it a non-event, other than just 3 young people showing up onto my property with a gun. Anyways, here's the quick little video so you can see it, and then I'll move on to the next to what is chroming.
Hey guys, what you doing? Okay. Did you bring a gun with you onto my property? Was that a gun you were pointing on my property?
The gun you were pointing on my property.
Sure looked like it.
They lied and said no. The best part of this video is when, here we go, let me pause it. Let's go back here, right? This is all it is. Look at that giant badonka-donk. I've always been, little in the middle, but I got much back. Check out that booty. Right there with that big American flag right there. I mean, could you have staged, like, if you want to, you couldn't have staged this better. This is how it actually happened. There you go. You can just barely see the M1 Garand there on my hip there. Get off my lawn, right? But the best part is right in the middle. when George, the French bulldog, decides he's going to come save the day as my backup. He's my firing buddy.
Hey guys, what you doing? Okay.
Here goes George.
Did you bring a gun with you onto my property? Is that a gun you were pointing on my property? Sure looked like it.
Yeah, so there you go. Wow, so brave, AP, so brave. Stunning and brave. All right, let's get back to the news. This 13-year-old girl who died from chroming, she inhaled fumes from a deodorant can, causing her to go into cardiac arrest on March 31st. She remained on life support for 8 days, at which the point doctors determined her brain was damaged beyond repair, and her family decided to turn off the machines. Yeah. So the parents are urging schools to teach CPR and are lobbying for a safer and less toxic formula for deodorant. I have a lot of things I want to say about this, but I just don't have time because I've got Chris Spangle coming up next on the show, and I'm going to be late because I got like 1 minute to go get him on the show. Let me go get Chris Spangle. I'll ask him about chroming. We'll talk to him about DeSantis versus Trump and whither the LP when we get back on the Wake Up America show at wakeupamericashow.com.
Want an engaging website to boost your business? You're just a click away from 5-star Fiverr talent. Hundreds of freelancer skills like web design. Head to Fiverr.com today and get something started.
American conservatism is distinct, like America is distinct from the United Kingdom. American conservatism's roots comes out of the Wild West, out of pioneerism. The difference between American conservatives and European conservatives is that Americans are cowboys. We are that God, guns, gold, and girls. It's wild here, and we should stay that way. We shouldn't allow a European version of conservatism to come and infect us here. We like it wide open spaces here, deep in the heart of Texas and all that.
Hey there, it's your favorite Vice President Joe Biden. I wanted to talk to you today about the Wake Up America show, the best source for all your political news and commentary. But before I get started, let me just make sure I have all my notes in order. Okay, where was I? All right, the Wake Up America show. It's a great way to stay informed and make your voice heard. Boy, what was I saying again? Oh, right. The Wake Up America show. It's important that we all stay engaged and knowledgeable about what's going on in our country and, the thing. But hold on, where was I going with all this? Oh, yeah. The Wake Up America show. It's a fantastic resource. And if you really want to make a difference, man, you can sign up to be a monthly donor at wakeupamericashow.com/support. Now, where was I? Oh, that's right, the Wake Up America show. So if you want to stay woke and support a great cause, head on over to wakeupamericashow.com/support and sign up to be a monthly donor today. And if you're feeling generous, you can even give a donation in my name. Thanks for listening, and keep on keeping on, America. Come on, man.
Good morning, Rise and Freedom. I'm Austin Peterson. You're watching and listening to the Wake Up America show at wakeupAmericaShow.com. Hope that you had a nice weekend, holiday weekend. Welcome back. I was thinking over the weekend about Dolly Madison when she made the American flag. People were probably saying, well, what should we do? What should the flag look like? I can imagine Dolly Madison asking John Adams and George Washington and all those guys, well, how should I do the stars on the flag? And I can really see George Washington just responding back saying, just spangle them bitches. We got caps to pop and bodies to drop. Welcome to the Wake Up America show. My next guest is the man that they named the Stars and Stripes after. He is Spangle. Joining us now, Chris Spangle on the show. He's the host of the Chris Spangle Show himself. He's joining us now. Good morning, Chris. Nice to see you, brother.
Austin, it's great to be with you. And, your history is more accurate than the New York Times. What can I say? I'm really proud of you.
How's that for just making up an intro on the fly right there? Chris.
Well, I've got a baby due. My wife has a baby due in like 2 weeks. I've just did 2 minutes of work. She's done all the hard work, but everyone wants us to name this child Star, and it's not going to happen, but it's a good thought.
Well, how about Apple? Or you could pull a page out of Penn Jillette's playbook and call him Moxie Crime Fighter.
There's been a lot of bad suggestions, like McKinsley, other names.
That sounds like somebody who would enjoy pumpkin spice and Uggs.
Just dressing our baby in beige with flat-brimmed hats, posting them on Instagram.
Chris, we're grateful to have you here. I hope that you had a nice holiday weekend. Looking forward to the birth of your child. Congratulations, by the way, on being a dad. Tell us, Chris, I mean, you're somebody who I've known for a long time, going way back. I think my very first job in the Libertarian Party in 2008, you and I had conversations. We spoke on the phone when you were in Indianapolis and I was in D.C. So we've been in this fight for a long time. So you're somebody who really knows politics on an intimate level, and not just Libertarian Party politics, but national level politics, because like me, you were a big Ron Paul fan. And so you sort of know the inner workings of the Republican Party, too, when we fought to try and help get Ron Paul to become the presidential candidate, which I think there's probably a lot of Republicans now that wish they had pulled that vote back in the days of Romney and McCain, et cetera, et cetera. But
if I can add
go ahead.
To your introduction, I mean, I became a libertarian because I was a Republican, and I'd love to be a Republican, but I've never felt that they have reformed themselves in any meaningful sense. And in 2008, I was a reporter for a local news talk station, and they pulled 300 delegates out of the Indiana State Convention that were Ron Paul fans to prevent them from going to D.C. or to the National Convention, I should say. And, one big muckety muck in the Republican Party a few years later told me that was their biggest mistake, is that was what lit the Tea Party on fire here in Indiana. Andy Horning had the first Tea Party in 2007 in a property tax revolt, which led to Rick Santelli kind of kicking it off. I mean, it was a huge mistake, and they've never learned from it. And, if they had learned the lessons of Ron Paul and become more libertarian, I don't think that they'd have the problems that they have now.
No, I agree with you, Chris, but it has been strange to see the dark turn that the Republican Party has taken after the Tea Party years, which really gave me a lot of hope. And now I saw that the Heritage Foundation was trending this morning, calling out Biden for the debt ceiling deal and saying that they need to get more concessions. This is just 3 weeks after the Heritage Foundation came out and said, oh, well, we think capitalism and free markets really do actually need to be regulated a little bit, because they're trying to jump on the new trend of anti-capitalist republicanism that's out there. But speaking of anti-capitalist republicanism, I'd like to ask you about the DeSantis versus Trump race. Is it a surprise to you to see Donald Trump running to the left of Ron DeSantis in this race?
No. I knew. I mean, I was always very critical and took a lot of crap, even though I'm completely right. In 2020, saying that Donald Trump is completely responsible for the lockdowns and 2 stimulus packages, and wrote the third and negotiated. You can Google this article. Donald Trump was critical of the 3rd stimulus package when he was president because Nancy Pelosi didn't make it big enough. And Donald Trump is responsible largely for our inflation. Yeah, you can say the infrastructure bill contributed. It certainly did. But when you look at the inflation that we've been suffering under, that was all architected by the president of the United States. The guy who had hired the CDC and FDA directors was Donald Trump at the time. Donald Trump bowed down, and Ron DeSantis' criticism is completely right when he just bent over and let Fauci control the country. I still have the postcard somewhere from March 2020 that says Trump's COVID plans, right? Like when Donald Trump came out and gave a press conference and said, these are my plans for shutting down the economy, and now let me step aside and let Fauci give his plan for what we ought to do. Donald Trump completely failed in his major test of leadership. And then about 3 months into it, realized he was making a big mistake and started becoming the anti-COVID candidate. And nobody bought it because they all had gotten the postcards. They all had gotten Trump's, remember the first checks were delayed because Donald Trump had to put his name on them.
Oh, yeah.
So that criticism from DeSantis is totally correct. And I do think Donald Trump is completely mystified. I mean, I think if anything in this segment, we're going to talk about basically populism versus principles. And I think a lot of the populists over the last 5 years have tried to retrofit principles, the first things guys and Sohrab Ahmari and a lot of libertarians are doing this. They're flirting with Robert Kennedy Jr., who would put the Koch brothers in jail. But it's all under the guise of principle. The populist wing of the Libertarian and Republican parties try to retrofit principles, but they've really lost sight of it. I know you have taken heat for the non-aggression principle, but I think libertarians in the movement have kind of lost sight of the NAP as sort of a baseline for things, which is why we all looked at the COVID restrictions and said, this is completely against our principles. We're all against this. Anybody who is for shutting down playgrounds or forced vaccinations is not a libertarian, and they were completely right. If you're restricting the freedom of movement, you're not a libertarian. Like, I know the circumstances are tough, but the government doesn't have that right. Why don't they have that right? Because they were initiating force against people's free conscience. So, when you look at the warp speed, for instance, Donald Trump rightly is sort of mystified by the fact that he gets booed when he says he came up with warp speed. I think it's you can look at the vaccine and say, look, this did protect a lot of people, and he can say this was good. But then you can also say a lot of people were forced into it through coercion, through the work, through the government, and all that happened under Donald Trump's watch. Like, it was initiated under Donald Trump's watch. That's why he's getting booed, and he doesn't have the ability to think critically about his performance because everything he does is the best, right? So he will probably beat DeSantis despite being a big government Republican and to the left of Ron DeSantis and some of these other candidates because of memes. That's why he won in May 16. When Donald Trump goes out there and you go, and then you got Joe Biden. This guy, he doesn't know anything. And he's wandering around the stage, and then it gets shared several million times on kind of the meme pages.
He's funny.
It's hilarious. He is the funniest stand-up comedian working right now. Sorry, Dave Chappelle. And people love it and they share it, and they sort of miss a time, pre-2020 when things were pretty good and things are very bad, and people rightly blame Joe Biden for a lack of leadership and a lack of coherence. And Ron DeSantis, I think, is kind of old pudding fingers. It's how Trump defeated every Republican against all the odds in 2016 with Lil Marco and sleepy Joe Biden and we love that stuff. We love the right. What was Jeb? Low energy Jeb. I mean, that just destroyed Jeb Bush. People
remember when he made fun of Rand Paul's hair looking like spaghetti on his head?
Yeah. I mean, Trump is just a funny guy, and Republicans have gotten themselves into a place where it's not about principle. It's really about how can they make the left cry. And every time you hear a Republican or conservative or libertarian commentator talk about the left, they've sort of lost their brain. Like they have abandoned principle in order to defeat an enemy, a perceived enemy, because they spend too much time on Twitter. And Donald Trump plays into that mindset of the base very, very well. Even though Ron DeSantis, and I'm not arguing for Ron DeSantis, like I'm a firm libertarian, I would never vote for Ron DeSantis. But when you look at the record of Donald Trump and you look at the record of Ron DeSantis, you, as a conservative Republican voter, you'd go, well, this guy actually has some achievements and is the same in terms of kind of taking on the media and taking on the people we don't like. But it doesn't work because Ron DeSantis just doesn't have that same meme factor. He doesn't walk out and hug the flag, and I think
act
he's
ridiculous,
really got a tough
right?
race.
No, you're right,
Yeah.
Chris. I agree with everything that you said. If you're just tuning into the Wake Up America show, good morning. Glad to have you here. Make sure you smash that like button and subscribe to the channel to help us spread the message of economic freedom and personal liberty. My current guest right now is Chris Spangle. He's the host of the Chris Spangle Show. He's joining us right now talking about DeSantis versus Trump. Yeah, no, you're right about the whole principle thing, because the chief criticism that I'm hearing of Ron DeSantis from Trump supporters is, one, that DeSantis isn't sufficiently loyal, because without Trump, he would have never been the governor. Maybe that's true. Maybe it isn't. And then the other one is that they just find Ron DeSantis to be boring, right? As if that is a disqualification for president of the United States. I remember when people used to disqualify Ron Paul because they're like, he just sounds so cratchy. He just sounds like an angry old man, blah, blah, blah. But this is how people choose their candidates. They're picking candidates for the sort of gladiatorial arena, right? That's why they're picking their candidates. But frankly, Ron DeSantis, his record when he was voting in the legislature, fairly libertarian. I wouldn't say Thomas Massey levels, but pretty close.
Yeah, I think all these guys have changed, though. Massey has stuck to his principles. Rand Paul has stuck to his principles, although they have at times bended those principles to go along to get along. Ron Paul did that. He was a big pork barrel spender, saying, look, it's going to go back to the executive branch. They're going to spend it, so I might as well spend it on my district so I can get reelected. You look at Rand Paul's endorsements of people like Roy Moore, and you just go, what are you doing? But there's a certain level to go along to get along. But I think Ron DeSantis, I look at the Disney fight and the punishment of a business for having an opinion he doesn't like, and you just go, all right, this guy's not the same libertarian-leaning guy that he was 10 years ago, because it's not in fashion to be a libertarian in the Republican Party anymore. There was a brief moment, I think, where, it started out with, Milton Friedman. All of the conservative movement kind of got its intellectual heft from Hayek. So Hayek comes along and gives intellectual weight to the anti-FDR movement. And all of the people who kind of developed their political philosophy in the 40s, 50s, 60s, like Ronald Reagan, like Margaret Thatcher, all looked at Milton Friedman, all looked at Hayek and said, okay, here is a person that is serious, that is taking on Keynesian economics, taking on the New Deal. And, Thatcher famously holding up the Constitution of Liberty by F.A. Hayek, this free market economist, and going, this is our Bible. This is what we need to do. Ronald Reagan saying the heart of conservatism is libertarianism. Now, they meant it minus the non-intervention part. It's really Ron Paul and the paleoconservative wing that interjected that piece to it. And now that has become the predominant piece. You look at people like Dave Smith and Scott Horton promoting Robert Kennedy Jr., who would who said on video, I'd put the Koch brothers in jail for disagreeing with me on, climate change, which is the exact same mentality as locking somebody up for disagreeing on vaccines. And they're promoting him and saying, well, he's right on the right things. Well, you're picking and choosing what's right? You've got to stay to a principle, which is if you're initiating force against other people through the government to coerce change, then you're immoral. And so we've kind of unmoored ourselves in the libertarian and conservative movements from basic libertarian principles because of fashion. People want to wear the right fashion.
That's
they
right.
want to look good on Twitter.
It's
and
true.
They are willing.
I will never forget, Chris, going to CPAC in like 2010 at the height of the Tea Party and seeing normies wearing Rand Paul shirts and just thinking to myself, oh my God, like this is it. This is how you win. But I mean, you could tell that they, this was before the word NPCs was out there. But I mean, you could tell they were all just NPCs, but they were just wearing the Rand Paul shirts because they wanted to fit in.
Few people were as disliked as you, AP. I mean, how did you and I, pro-life, former Republican, Glenn Beck libertarians, end up on the left wing of the Libertarian Party somehow, and then like the drop off from you and me on the left wing is down to like, legitimate socialist libertarians, and that's only happened in like the last 3 or 4 years. But it's just it's because people are looking at it through fashion. They look at Chris Spangle, they look at Austin Peterson, and they go, well, because these people are not populist, because these people look at the things from a more pragmatic view and aren't totally sold on things like the Mises Caucus being an effective organization, they must be leftists. That's why I've never liked Michael Heiss, because he has actively tried to say that we are libertarians and the whole brand is left. Well, no, I just don't buy that that Hoppe and the autocratic view of libertarianism, the view that Orban is a plus for liberty, is real. And so that gets you branded a leftist now. And the Republicans have their own version. If you're not in on the cult of personality on Trump, you're not with us.
Well, what's hilarious is that
it affects everybody.
The Republicans on the populist, quote unquote, right in the Republican Party openly advocate for socialistic policies, and then they have the nerve, the gall to call other people socialists. But let's narrow this down here and talk about it, since you brought it up, Michael Heiss and the Mises Caucus the other day. I was watching a video, and frequently when I watch Dave Smith's videos, he's usually very funny, and I agree with a lot of the things that he said. But the other day I was listening to a video that somebody posted of him, unironically, where he was saying that, well, minarchism, he's like, Joseph Stalin is a minarchist. I mean, Bernie Sanders is really a minarchist. And I just cringed to hear that. I was kind of like, what in the hell are you talking about? And it just struck me as a sort of like of a justification for anarcho-capitalism that really doesn't need to be said. I mean, do you really have to make shit up and try and argue that? Do you really believe that Joseph Stalin was a minarchist? That Bernie Sanders, somebody who believes in limited government, for those of you who are tuning in who have no idea what I'm talking about. But I mean,
yeah, it's the night watchman state. It's the Robert Nozick version of libertarianism, where you have a night watchman state where basically the courts are private.
Right.
Because, my court says your court is illegitimate, then we have a battle. That's why I consider myself a minarchist. You privatize everything down to the courts, and you keep the only allowable centralization of force is the courts. Yeah. That's minarchism. Does that sound like Bernie Sanders?
No, it doesn't, and it's a little ridiculous. I mean, it's the first time that I've ever heard Dave say something that was kind of a head scratcher to me. But I think they're really what it looks as if it is happening is if
now you've criticized the Pope, AP.
I know
they're going to tell on you. Dude, you're going to tell him, and then you're going to be called to the principal's office.
Do you remember? You probably remember like 10 years ago or something like that when I criticized Ron Paul a little bit, and there was a huge backlash. It was like this massive.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Backlash. I still.
Well, you were stupid about the non-aggression principle, but we all forgave you, man.
Sure. Thoughts on post-libertarian Pete Quinones, says Quest Fanning. I don't really know anything about Pete Quinones, but I just want to get your take on the possibility of Dave Smith for president. I mean, like, everybody says he's going to be the LP guy. I know there's a bunch of other people running. I've got a guy coming in tomorrow, Mike Termott, who's coming in. He's a libertarian presidential candidate. He actually sounds fairly impressive. But I mean, how are you feeling about the post-AP LP?
I mean, listen, I'll caveat this that I had to do homework because I just don't follow the Libertarian Party anymore. Not like I used to. I consider myself a small L libertarian. I don't really view politics as a mean for change. I had an experience here producing a podcast over the last 4 years where I've gone to basically interview the elite of our city, the movers and shakers of politics, civil society, business. None of them have any awareness of the Libertarian Party of Indiana, which is one of the strongest affiliates, or how it works. It doesn't really make a huge impact. And that kind of unmoored me from I mean, it's a great social club. I love all the people in the Libertarian Party that I've met over the years. I think it's a fun exercise. But I will say, when you look at the opportunity that the Libertarian Party has in 2024 is tremendous, and they're going to completely screw it up. I mean, the There's always a bump in membership and revenue after a presidential election. We saw a little bit of that, but it was blunted. And now we're just seeing the floor fall out from under the Mises leadership and the leadership of Angela McArdle. Membership is dropping. You know, they're trying to put a positive spin on it, but you've got people like Reed Coverdale, I think his name is. I saw a tweet from him. This is a guy that was all sold on this movement and a part of it. And he's like, you know, we're allowing these pro-war, pro-Russian speakers. We're doing these things. Like, what are we doing? You know, they're saying, they sound like me in 2018 going, this direction's not good and it's not going to work. You know, you've been around and you've run for president in the LP at this point in a year out from the convention. You've always got guys like Mike Tiermont or Lars Mapstead or Joshua Rodriguez, people that you've kind of not heard of. You know, Larry Sharp had a debate and had some of these folks in. You always sort of listen to them, you know, but they're not. Maybe they'll gain momentum, but they're not. You know, I've seen that Jacob Hornberger's running. He was a Mises Caucus favorite. Did not get it done last time, but maybe this time. Chase Oliver's running. I don't know if he's declared aligned with the Classical Liberty Caucus, which is sort of the orthodox libertarian classical, you know, that they're a little more aligned with maybe the Libertarian Party that you and I knew back in the day, although less radical, I think. So, you know, Chase is running. Chase and Jacob at this point of the declared candidates would kind of be the race. But I saw Spike Cohen say on Twitter yesterday he hasn't ruled anything out. I think if he ran for president, Spike would probably beat everybody, because Spike is a guy that everybody likes, everybody gets along with. There's always fringe people who hate him. Oh, he was aligned with Vermin Supreme, screw him. Or, you know, he's aligned with the Mises Caucus, screw him. But, you know, you can't look at what Spike is doing and the work that Spike is doing and go, that guy's all in for libertarian causes. He's making change. He's building a huge network through You Are the Power across the country that he could turn on as delegates. I don't know that Dave Smith is doing that work. Dave Smith is, you know, on Joe Rogan and a popular mouthpiece. But when you want to win a convention, you've got to have delegates. Justin Amash has always talked about it. I don't think Justin Amash would run. I think Dave, Spike, Justin, people who are going to spend serious time and have a serious shot, they have to look at it and go, can I win president? Can I make a difference? And you have to look at a national party that has divided itself. Oregon a few years ago divided into two parties. It lasted for almost a decade before it was finally resolved. That's happening in half a dozen to a dozen state parties across the country between Mises aligned and the organization that was there before. And ballot access is nowhere in the discussion. I mean, Angela McArdle is saying ballot access is not our focus. Well, you can't effectively run for president. Like Austin, would you actually run for president again if you knew you were only going to be on like 40 ballots? Would you waste your time?
No, but
No,
I mean, I
he's
don't
shaking
think I'd
his
run.
head no.
I don't think I'd run for president again. Overall, it's a pretty thankless job.
Yeah, you, and that's exactly right. Like if you're Justin Amash and you're looking at 2020, you go, look, this organization's in disarray. I'm not going to get to go around the country, shake hands, and kiss babies because of COVID restrictions. Why do I want to run for president for this organization?
Well, the
It's
LP
not a
turned on
crazy
him.
thought.
What was
Right.
amazing is that the LP quickly turned against Justin Amash, even though he kind of sacrificed everything, his entire career, so that
Yeah.
he could go and lift the Libertarian Party up. And then they immediately turned on him and threw him to the dogs. I mean, they just ripped him up.
If you're Dave Smith, if you're Dave Smith, you've got a great life.
Yeah.
You get to go do cool things. You're doing, you know, Legion of Skanks. You're doing, you know, your podcast. You're going on Joe Rogan. Like, you've got a young family. Why would you want to put your family through that at this point for this organization? Even if you control the organization, it's going to be a horrible experience. You know, if you're Spike and you're making a difference with your organization, why go support an organization that isn't going to make a difference, that is going to punish you for doing anything for it? It's just it's worse than when you did it, and it was a thankless, horrible job a decade ago when you did it.
God, yeah, that's true. But geez, almost a decade ago. Pucho over in the live stream says Adam Kokesh always runs. Man, you remember Adam Kokesh?
Adam, remember when Adam was the biggest problem in the Libertarian Party,
Yeah, I
taking a
remember.
gun to the Capitol?
I remember those days, and man, everybody just wanted to lift him up as like the savior of libertarianism and things like that. And then he just kind of like flamed out and disappeared. And it just feels sometimes, Chris, like we're just scattered to the four winds. Like I don't know that we don't need a messiah to come and to lead our people out of the desert, but we certainly are wandering in the wilderness.
No, we need principled libertarians that read, that understand what they're talking about. I think every libertarian should start a podcast. I know it's cliche. I know everybody wants to make fun of it, but doing a podcast and talking on the air to your small circle of friends makes you smarter. I know so much more from doing this for the last 10 years. I started this and I have to learn something every week. I have to like constantly pay attention and wrestle with my ideas. I'm not a certain person. I do admire like the quality that somebody like a Dave Smith has, where they're just very certain of everything. That's not me. I wrestle with things a lot more. But I'm wrestling with it. I think we just need people who are out knocking on doors, who are maybe being a treasurer, who are participating in the activity. This is the benefit of the Libertarian Party. If you run for office, you may not win, but you're going to the county council meetings. You're going to the city council meetings. Stop running for Congress. Stop running for Senate. Stop running for the big tier part. Like run for township trustee, because my experience back in the day when I was executive director of the Libertarian Party of Indiana, every county that I went in for those 4 years had $100 million project. And, in a couple counties, by showing up with a video camera and putting the meetings on YouTube, they were able to kill those projects. You can make a tremendous splash in small rural counties where you can start to become the second party. Here in Indiana, Don Rainwater ran for governor on the most reasonable, right COVID, the one that I articulated. Look, the role of the government through COVID is to give you accurate statistics. And then everyone else needs to make their own decision as to what they do. You can't shut down people's businesses. You can't restrict movement. You can't, I remember seeing this orange fencing around a park, when it was April, and everybody knew at that point that you could be outside and you were going to be fine. It's just all these stupid ideas, but he won 32 counties, I think, out of 92 counties here in Indiana. Like in rural Indiana, the Libertarian Party of Indiana is the second party, which means that they deserve to be on all the boards. They deserve to be appointed to commissions. They deserve to be heard, because the Democrats have no organization there. Some of these counties, the Libertarian Party of Indiana has an organization and the Democrats don't. In a city like Indianapolis, it's pretty hopeless, right? It's pretty difficult when you've got a red state, blue city, where the Republicans are getting their butts kicked by 70% and barely able to function as a Republican Party, but they have money, right? But in these rural counties, you can make a real difference in terms of influencing these politicians. And that's where the crazy populist Republicans are, that are going to be seduced by the common good conservatism or the Orban style of politics. It's already happening. And principled libertarians that know what they're talking about can save these politicians from just becoming a bigger government version of Republican politics.
Chris, I know you're a busy man and you've got a family, and it's been exciting to watch you you build up your life and things like that on the margins, as I see on social media, you posting about your lovely wife and your family. And I'm really happy for you that you found that happiness, Chris. And thanks for being so generous with your time with us this morning, because people really do get excited when you're going to be on the show, because you have tremendous insight and I respect you greatly. I'd like to give you the opportunity right now, before I let you go, to share anything that you'd like to let the listeners know.
Well, likewise to you. Love watching you and your beautiful wife build compounds and do all kinds of cool content. So likewise to you. Yeah, please check me out, chris-spangle.com. You can find all my projects there. Chris Spangle Show on the We Are Libertarians Podcast Network. We've got a bunch of different podcasts that you can check out. Just type in We Are Libertarians and you'll find all our shows.
There you go. That's Chris Spangle. So type in We Are Libertarians. You can find his shows. He's the host of the Chris Spangle Show. Chris, come back and see us soon, and congratulations on your upcoming child.
Anytime, AP.
Thanks very much. What do you think of Chris Spangle? I thought that he was pretty fantastic. You can send us a text at 573-319-1586. That's 573-319-1586. All right, when I get back, it's Camellia. We're already late for CJ. We're going to talk about the debt ceiling deal. What was in it? You have to read the bill to find out what was in it. All that and more on the Wake Up America Show at wakeupAmericaShow.com.
To the Cantina crew, this is Elon Musk, the CEO of Twitter, and I just want to say thank you for watching the Wake Up America show. I've decided that Austin Peterson will be the new CEO of Twitter.com, effective immediately. First thing to do, though, is I've got to go and blast off into space.
If there wasn't going to be somebody who was a fiery champion of liberty, somebody who would get out there and who would be aggressive, and if they wouldn't do it with more fire or passion than I had, then I would go and I would fight this battle for us. I've fought for the principles that we all share. Parties tend to be secondary to me. We're here because we believe in the principles of liberty. I am not a perfect messenger, but I think I'm a damn good one. This is a replica of our first president's flintlock pistol. You have my full support, my respect, and my gun.
I think that at the heart of my philosophy is much more libertarianism than well, that's the fashionable word these days, I guess. A conservative is no longer just that. He's a libertarian and always has been.
Yet any time you and I question the schemes of the do-gooders, we're denounced as being against their humanitarian goals. They say we're always against things, we're never for anything.
What is fascism? Fascism is private ownership, private enterprise, but total government control and regulation.
Well, the trouble with our liberal friends is not that they're ignorant. It's just that they know so much that isn't so. If we lose freedom here, there's no place to escape to. This is the last stand on earth. This is the issue of this election. Whether we believe in our capacity for self-government or whether we abandon the American Revolution and confess that a little intellectual elite in a far distant capital can plan our lives for us better than we can plan them ourselves.
Conservative, so-called, is the one that says less government, get off my back, get out of my pocket, and let me have more control of my own destiny.
Good morning, Rise and Freedom. I'm Austin Peterson. You're watching and listening to the Wake Up America Show at wakeupAmericaShow.com. Well, everybody's been on vacation or they're on vacation and they're out having a good time. And here I am on Memorial Day just doing my show, my regular thing. Well, I might take a day off on Thursday, but you know what you missed last week? I know what you missed. You missed having your favorite regular guest on the program, didn't you? You know, the one that you like to chat with in the live stream. She's an OG member of the Cantina crew, and she's joining us now from the sunny state of Florida, or I guess as Trump supporters would say, the terrible state of Florida, which did a disgusting job with COVID-19 and has an awful governor. Was it a hellscape? Camellia Peterson, good morning.
Good morning. Just terrible. I'm not sure how I survived it. God, it's good to be back in Missouri.
I bet. I mean, the way Trump supporters, to explain Florida these days, they're like, "Oh, terrible governance. It's a horrible place to live. Nobody would want to live there, except for all the Republicans who moved there, specifically for DeSantis."
I tell you what, the roads were pretty great. I did
Mm.
like they had really nice roads, so I will say that for Florida. They have toll roads too, but they had really nice roads.
They have nice roads, and they were toll roads. Interesting. Camellia, would you like to respond to what Chris Spangle was saying specifically about the LP? Because I know a lot of libertarians are not necessarily pleased with Donald Trump or even with Ron DeSantis or what they see. I know you're not happy with the candidates in the Republican Party. So I guess you must be excited for a Spike Cohen or a Dave Smith or a Mike Termott or name a half a dozen other people who are running for the LP. Are you excited about the LP candidates?
I would be excited if Spike actually ran. Spike is really the only one that I would be excited about in that field. I mean, oh my gosh, did he say Jacob Hornberger is running again?
Yes.
Oh Lord.
He might
I'm
win.
sure. Oh my gosh, really smart man and everything. I'll just never forget my watching the LP convention for the first time in the presidential debates and whatever, that they were having for their candidates. And I came away from one of the ones after Justin Amash dropped out. I watched the one more after that, and I came away thinking like Vermin Supreme sounded more reasonable than Jacob Hornberger, because Jacob Hornberger was whining because he did. I was like, can we just adult here a little bit?
Well, that's the LP for you. If you're just tuning into the Wake Up America show, make sure you click that like button and subscribe to the channel that you're watching us on. We're grateful to have you here. My friend Camellia Peterson is joining us right now. I wanted to ask her a little bit about the debt ceiling debacle. Apparently, the Republicans managed to squeeze some concessions out of the White House in the upcoming debt ceiling deal. What do we got for her, Johnny?
Well, I was watching this a little bit over the last couple of days, and really what caught my eye was whenever Thomas Massey had responded to. So our friend Jack Hunter had had posted an article saying that, conservatives were really bashing this debt ceiling deal. And he tagged several of them, including like Rand Paul and Thomas Massey and Chip Roy and a few others. And Massey responded and said, I actually have not been bashing this deal. And I was like, okay. What does that mean? He said, basically, we won't know anything until it comes out. It was just before it came out at that point. He said that they were told that it was less than 100 pages, he said, which is a little bit of a miracle in and of itself. And so I really started watching Massey's account because, he's good anyway, but he really did a great breakdown of what's involved in getting to the debt ceiling deal in the process. But yeah, when it came out, it's 99 pages. So that's a good thing. There are some things in there, like there's a work requirement for welfare. There is Joe Manchin has been trying to get this approval for a natural gas pipeline that's been bogged down in lawsuits and, complex permitting process for years, even though it's 94% complete. So that's in there. Approval to push that through is in there. And also this was kind of surprised me a little bit, but there's also a deal in there where unspent COVID funds are returned because, all of that money that went to the states, and a lot of it is just still sitting there. They're saying that that could be as much as $30 billion just in unspent COVID funding alone. So it is getting bashed across the board. Rand Paul is speaking out against it. Mike Lee is speaking out against it. But it is one of those things where I think that it changed my perspective a little bit when Thomas Massey walked through and he basically said that there are some good things in here. And one of the things that is in there is a version of the Massey plan, the penny plan. And in section 102, of it, he said that it is that if there's a provision in there that if the House does not pass all 12 appropriations bills, because that's the next step in this process, and if the Senate does not agree to those, then they have to cut government spending 1% across the board.
Wow.
So that would be pretty huge. And I know that, we're all idealists.
Right.
And we want to get, everything we want. And, we don't, there's a lot of bad things here too. But one of the things that Massey pointed out is that where they really have a chance to make a difference here and to really control spending in a more transparent and precise way is to use the congressional tools they have, such as the upcoming appropriations bills. And actually, Marjorie Taylor Greene also quote tweeted Massey on that, and is in agreement with that as well. And I think he's right. And people get criticized for looking like they compromise on things, but you also have to work with what you're given as well to a certain extent. We sort of saw that in the speaker race too. But they held out and they held out and they held out until they got enough to, at least it's a start.
If you're just tuning into the Wake Up America show, I'm Austin Peterson. Thanks so much for tuning in. Make sure you click that like button and subscribe to the channel to help us spread the message of freedom. Joining us now is Camellia Peterson. She is an activist for Americans for Prosperity here in the state of Missouri and a regular guest on the Wake Up America show. You can follow her at Rare Camellia. That's Camellia over on Twitter. She's a great follow over there. Now, Camellia, the Massey plan, 1%, that's the big spending stuff. Did you mention in there anything about the pipeline? Did I miss that?
Yes. Yeah. The pipeline. So approval for this natural gas pipeline that has just been sitting there for years, bogged down in permitting process and lawsuits. And so that would be in there. Joe Manchin has been trying to put that on to other things like for the last 6 months or more, without success. And that is in here as well. And I think, I don't know if it just applies to the pipeline, because something I saw basically said that across the board, it would make it easier to get energy project permits. So I'm not sure about that, but that would be a good thing if that's the case.
That would be fantastic. I mean, there's a lot of reason for pessimism when you look around, but when you hear this debt ceiling deal, it's nice to see people actually fighting. But the thing is, though, and this is where the pessimism comes back, Camellia, is that I feel like if it was a Republican president, they would not be doing this.
No, they would they would rubber stamp it. One of the things too that's kind of interesting about this is, the complaint in the past has always been, you've got to read the bill, or like you have to pass it before you can read it. And so Thomas Massey is one of the people on the House Rules Committee now, and they have instituted the rule that you have to have 72 hours before they can vote on the bill. So it was released, the text was released on Sunday, and the earliest they can vote on it is Wednesday.
Yeah, it looks as if the presidential candidate Ron DeSantis is out there trashing the debt ceiling deal touted by the GOP. He's out there dunking on it, saying we're careening towards bankruptcy. I mean, these are the kinds of things that he should be saying. But he's criticized the massive amount of spending over the next year and a half. But a lot of people really don't know Ron DeSantis's record when it comes to fiscal issues. And when I say that Donald Trump is running to the left of Ron DeSantis, I'm not kidding. I mean, you looked into Ron DeSantis's record, didn't you?
Right. And, one of the things, I can't remember who was talking about it the other day, but one of the things that they mentioned was that his voting record in the past has actually been pretty darn good. And so that was, I know that's been a while. There are some things that he's done as governor that I've not been crazy about, but there's not going to be any candidate that's, there's not going to be anybody that's 100%. So my hope is that it matters so much who you choose to surround yourself with. And if DeSantis will surround himself with people like Thomas Massey and Chip Roy and, Rand Paul, those kinds of people, if he will surround himself with those people, that makes me feel a lot better. It's probably also worth noting that DeSantis, I believe, was a founding member of the House Freedom Caucus. So
that's a big deal.
Yeah, that's a positive. So anyway, I am hopeful. There's been a couple of things that he said that are concerning, but there's always going to be something.
If you're just tuning in to the Wake Up America show, good morning. I'm Austin Peterson. We're glad to have you here on the show. Click that like button and subscribe to make sure that you get notifications whenever we go live, which is every Monday through Friday from 7 a.m. to 9 a.m. Central Time. Camellia, did you see the video of me chasing those people off of my property yesterday with the M1 Garand?
I did. That's great. By the way, the Garand is one of your guns that probably I've had the most fun shooting. That's like my favorite.
It was just so wild how serendipitous that it just so happened that I had just gotten done cleaning the gun, and then these people roll up on my property, and whip out a pistol, and they're 100 yards away, and I'm just like, God, I was born for this day. Pretty wild though, but yeah, no, I mean,
George to the rescue.
yeah, no kidding. Have you ever had people do that? Just kind of like roll up onto your property and start shooting?
Well, no, I'll tell you what I did have happen one time that alarmed me and kind of made me realize that I needed to keep something nearby and be a little more careful, because where I am out in Southwest Missouri, we're on a dead end road. So if you're out here, we either know you or you're lost or you're up to no good. And so I know there was one night here a couple of years ago that about 2:30 in the morning, somebody was pounding on my door. And I went, and there was like a woman standing on my porch, and there's a guy standing out further in my yard. And I'm like, what in the world? And so I foolishly opened the door and stuck my head out a little bit. And she said they were on their way home from the bar, and they got lost, and they were trying to find something or the other. And I was like, okay, well, it's back that way. And I don't know, in hindsight, it was really dumb and I shouldn't have done that, and it made no sense. And like at 4 o'clock in the morning, somebody was back pounding on my door and I did not answer at that time.
Camellia, is there anything else you'd like to share with our listeners before we let you go today?
I would say one thing. I would really encourage everybody to check out Massey's Twitter account for one particular reason. He has on there what is the title at the top is Roadmap Thread. And this is really educational, and it's something that I had not seen anything about before. Very helpful. And he said that there's at least 5 things that Congress calls spending, and he goes through all of these things, and they are, the budget authorizations, appropriations, non-discretionary spending, the debt limit. And he said, basically, if you've read through all of these things, and it's not long, he said, you will understand more about the ways in which Congress spends money than he did when he first got elected. And so, he simplified it to a certain extent. But, one of the things that he does mention is that there's that's interesting, and I need to learn a little bit more about, is that under authorizations, that a lot of government departments are not authorized per se. They operate on waivers. And those include departments like Department of Justice, FBI, HHS. So that's a little concerning, and we should probably change that, but that's something that I need to learn more about. But it's really, really helpful if you don't know a lot about that process, if you want to check that out.
You're just always a font of useful information, aren't you, Camellia Peterson? Thank you very much for your time. Nice background there, and we're glad to have you back for your regular gig. Thanks so much, Camellia.
Good to be back. Have a great day, everyone.
Yeah, you too. Did you like Camellia Peterson? Send us a text at 573-319-1586. Did you see the video of me chasing the people off my property yesterday who showed up with an ATV and started waving a gun around on my property? Here's the video if you missed it, just in case. Take a look.
Hey guys, what you doing? Okay. Did you bring a gun with you onto my property? Was that a gun you were pointing on my property? Sure looked like it.
So what's your favorite part of the video? Is it the French bulldog running across the screen? You can vote right now. Is it a French bulldog right there running across the screen?
Gun with you onto my property?
Is it me saying, is that a gun you brought with you on my property? Or is the best part of the video right here? Oh, look at that chunky monkey right there. Big old booty. Oh God, where's my, Love it. Oh, I know, man. Look at her.
And look at her. She looks like she's 19 years old, sitting there like a little lady in a race car.
God, we'll be back with more on the Wake Up America Show at wakeupAmericaShow.com.
Trump, and I approve this message. Believe me, Austin Peterson is the best. He's got the greatest Wake Up America show I've ever seen. Whenever I tune in the mornings and watch the live stream, let me tell you, he has got the absolute best content. I love his guests. It's just a total blast to watch, and I highly endorse and recommend the Wake Up America show. It's terrific, believe me.
Step right up, ladies and gents, to learn about the coolest president yet. He's not just any old prez, he's Calvin Coolidge, and boy oh boy is he different from the rest. He was quiet as a mouse, but don't you underestimate his power. He knew how to handle money, and he didn't waste an hour. He cut taxes, lowered debt, and balanced the budget with ease. No wonder the Roaring Twenties brought such prosperity and peace. But don't take my word for it. Grab a copy of Calvin the Coolest President and see for yourself. It's a children's book that'll make you smile and help your little ones learn about wealth. You can find it on Amazon Kindle or get your hands on a paperback at apforlibertyshop.com. So come on down and get yourself a copy of the book that's making waves all around town. You won't regret it, so get ready to be floored because Calvin Coolidge, well, folks, he really scored.
I'm a public defender.
I am a public defender.
I'm proud to be a public defender.
80% of Americans accused of a crime will get appointed a public defender.
Everybody from a speeding ticket to capital murder.
For every dollar we spend on public defenders, we spend $3 on prosecutors.
Public defenders have to do pretty much everything on their own.
Social workers, counselors.
Investigating is another piece of it.
The average public defender holds 300 cases annually.
You never feel like there's enough time.
Public defenders have health issues all the time.
A lot of people give up and say, I can't do this work anymore.
Gideon's Promise trains, mentors, and supports public defenders.
There are a lot of people who say that they would not still be public defenders, but for Gideon's Promise.
It's fueled me to continue on in this fight.
Gideon's Promise has changed the face of public defense.
People see us as troublemakers.
Good trouble only.
We don't make it easy. It should not be easy to take away someone's liberty.
Ever hear the one about the frog? Put a frog in a pot of boiling water and it'll jump right out.
Here's my resume again.
But put a frog in a pot of cool water and slowly heat it up, and that frog will boil. It's a lie. But as a metaphor for us and all that we go through as veterans,
Any real world experience.
it's a story that rings true. We make excuses for how we feel. We push everything down. We tell ourselves the lie that it's easier to stay in that boiling water, to disconnect. And some days, maybe it is. But you've never been interested in easy. Make no mistake, reaching out is hard. Do it anyway. You're not alone. You've got this. You are not a frog.
Find resources at va.gov/reach.
Good morning, Rise and Freedom. I'm Austin Peterson. You're watching and listening to the Wake Up America Show at wakeupAmericaShow.com. All right, well, hotly anticipated. I know a lot of you are very excited to have our next guest joining us, so you don't have to wait anymore. She is the redheaded libertarian official trademark, copyright. The lovely Josie joining us now on the show for our first public conversation ever. Good morning, Josie. Thank you so much for joining us here today and for getting up early.
Good morning, Austin. Not much of a morning person, but for you, I will get up early.
Well, thank you, Josie. I appreciate that. There's so much that I want to talk to you about, especially I'd like to just talk about a little bit about your career and how exciting it has been as your meteoric rise to fame over the last couple of years has really truly been a sight to see. But before we get to that, Josie, I'd like to ask you about this story that you shared. You actually brought this to my attention. A Missouri school district putting they them pronouns in math class to help kids, quote, mathematical identities. What was it that you found so interesting about this story?
So, GLSEN is a woke organization that Target was doing a lot of business with. And so digging into them, you find all of the stuff that they've done in the past. And one of those things that they were doing was putting they them pronouns in math problems because everything has to be wokeified. This goes into a lot of different points that are happening right now, with the woke ideology kind of just infiltrating everything. And so digging into that, we find out that there's a CEI, which is this cultural equity. It's a woke credit score essentially, and they are putting it on everybody, everywhere, everything, businesses, municipalities, even schools. So you wonder how much of this goes into if this human rights campaign, which runs the CEI, if they were involved in getting Target, like, okay, these people are going to help you wokeify, so it makes you wonder what's going on, what the deeper reason is behind all of this. And it's kind of got the Streisand effect at this point because everybody's digging into what is going on because, a bunch of companies didn't organically just look at Dylan Mulvaney and say, oh, wow, so brave. We want this as our spokesperson. So yeah, it just kind of made me dig into that a little bit.
What's fascinating too, Josie, is that you brought up Dylan Mulvaney. Is the Bud Light, the scenario that they find themselves in is dire because not only have they offended the people who actually drink their beer, but now they sort of have to double down on their left strategy because they have a credit score that they want to try and maintain with these ESG what do you call them, moderators or people, ratings agencies who are trying to essentially force these corporations to go along with this woke agenda. But now Bud Light is getting in trouble because they've kind of backed away from the Dylan Mulvaney campaign, if you'll call it that, and they really can't win. I mean, what would you do if you were in their situation?
So a little bit going into the CEI that I was bringing up earlier. So the CEI is the woke credit score, and it's driven by this human rights campaign, right? So digging into the human rights campaign, it's funded by Open Society Foundation, which is a George Soros foundation. So it all goes back to that. So what happens if a company doesn't abide by this and do and listen to these demands? So what happens is HRC sends out lobbyists to these companies with a list of demands, and if they don't meet these demands, then they lose funding, they lose advertisers, they lose any investors, they lose a lot. They have a lot to lose, a lot to risk. So I wonder if Bud Light thinks maybe we're too big to fail. Like, do we really need these advertisers? Do we really need investors? Like what do we how much power do we actually have? And this is a type of corporate fascism, and the fact that the government isn't doing anything to stop it, and we know they're on board with it, makes it even worse. So,
well, it is a form of fascism, especially because that word is apt because if you look at it in regards to Twitter, and we saw how the government, I think Elon Musk actually brought this up, that the idea that the corporation was doing the bidding of government. When the line is blurred between corporations and government, I mean, that really is what we're talking about here. That is the definition of fascism. If the Webster's dictionary definition of fascism. And that's why I think libertarians need to be involved. However, I saw my buddy Chris Morrill over the live stream. He says, remember when libertarians used to largely sit out the culture war stuff? Pepperidge Farm remembers more and more libertarians are getting actively engaged in the culture wars. And we probably tended to eschew them more back in the 1980s and the moral majority years and Jerry Falwell and poo-poo it. But, I'm of the opinion, and you probably agree, that, we sort of have to stop tyranny, where it starts, and tyranny can come in many forms. What do you think?
The government is driving the culture war. So we can't shrink the government. We can't fight the government unless we fight the culture war. They're a big part of it. They're driving it. They're enforcing it. They're putting laws in order, like ESG, for instance. That's an Obama era thing. He put that in. He made companies have to abide by this ESG score in order to function in the market. Like the government is doing this. So we have two enemies. One of them is this woke war that we're in, and the other is the government. So there's just a lot of overlap right now.
There certainly is. If you're just tuning into the Wake Up America show, good morning. Thank you so much for joining us. Make sure to click that like button and hit the subscribe if you're not already subscribed to the channel. You're listening to our friend, the redheaded libertarian official, Josie, is joining us on the show today. So make sure you click like for her. We're grateful that she got up early to join us here. You've had a really exciting career. Went from baking apple pies to now being on a first name basis with Elon Musk, and also now working over at Timcast. So it's certainly been an exciting career, Josie. I mean, you must be absolutely thrilled. I mean, you're in a really great position. So tell us a little bit about what life's like these days.
It's just every day I wake up and I'm just like humbled, like what is going on? It's a little bit of imposter syndrome. It's a little bit of just being completely humbled, just being so thankful and grateful for everything that I have in my life and the way that my career is going. I mean, there's going to be big news coming up in the next couple weeks, which I'm excited to break to you when I'm able to, about just more exciting, amazing things. And I don't know, it leaves me speechless. And I'm not often speechless.
Well, tell us, I guess you're doing media for Timcast. Is that correct? What does that consist of?
I go on podcasts, I go on the news. I've been on the Jesse Kelly show. I've been on OANN. I actually was supposed to be on Fox News. They, I broke a story, and then they wanted me. Then they had me meet with Laura Inger.
Laura Ingalls
You know who I
Wilder.
mean? Yes. Yes, her. Yes, so we were gonna go on the prairie. No. So so they had me film, and then they decided they were just gonna not air my segment and break the news themselves. So that was fun. But I guess they're kind of known for that.
Yes, I have seen them do that before, for sure. Ashley A over on the live stream says that she loves Josie over on Timcast. We watch Austin in the morning and Timcast at night. Well, thank you, Ashley. We appreciate that. We're glad to have Josie here joining us. Doing the morning show circuit. Yeah, I was saying to myself, Josie, when I was going to start my show, I was like, it's probably not a good idea to compete with Timcast, Austin. So maybe start an early morning show, even though libertarians tend to not be early risers, a lot of potheads out there. And so I catch the early morning crowd of libertarians, the ones who have kids and are getting their kids ready for school and things like that. But we're grateful to have you here with us today, Josie. We're talking a little bit about how to fight the wokies as libertarians. The liberty movement has undergone a lot of transformation over the last decade. You and I have sort of been at different levels of it in different ways, and kind of have different perspectives on things. And it's been sort of disappointing to see that the Tea Party spirit, where liberty and functional economics was at the forefront of Republican policy, taxed enough already. And I won't lie, I have been disappointed to see that while populism that, has a lot of cultural issues that I agree with, and certainly the anti-elitist bias that I have as well, has, ejected the neoconservatives from the Republican Party. One of my major concerns with the faction and power on the right, Josie, is their complete and utter disregard for free market economics. As a matter of fact, they sort of parrot a lot of criticisms of libertarians that we usually get from the left when it comes to economics. So rather than sort of like paying lip service to libertarian values while doing the opposite, which is what Republicans used to do, it seems as if now Republicans very openly and blatantly love to criticize libertarians and attack us from the left when it comes to economics. Is this something that you've noticed? And I'd wonder if you'd give commentary on that.
Yeah, absolutely. I had actually talked about the debt ceiling a bit yesterday. So this agreement that they haven't quite agreed to yet, but are headed in the way to agreeing to, it sounds great. Like at if you don't know anything about economics, and you just know like this number's bigger than that number, and this is a big number, and that's also a big number, but I don't understand the rationale between them. So they've proposed a spending decrease of $50 billion, which to me and you, that's like, oh, wow, that sounds like a lot of money. This is great. However, they also proposed an increase of 2 trillion over 2 years. And I guess that can get up to 4 trillion now. So it's like, okay, well, they're seeing the numbers 50 and they're seeing the number 2 or 4. And it's like, okay, well, 50, and that's just the way that our brains are supposed to work. Just as regular humans, we really aren't supposed to be dealing in numbers like trillions when it comes to money. So for the purpose of comprehension, I've converted these numbers into time. So 1 million seconds, just for a grasp on the differentiation. 1 million seconds is 11.67 days. 1 billion seconds is 31.68 years. 1 trillion seconds is 31,688 years. Okay, so that's a pretty substantial difference, and especially for people who don't really, like me, even I can't wrap my head around that number. That's just immeasurable. So essentially, Congress will subtract 1,584.4 years and add 63,376.18 years to our debt. So that's like a 2.5% decrease from the initial number. And I mean, ironically, it's going to take about 65,000 years to pay our debt off anyway. So I guess it works in that regard.
65,000 years. Well, I'll be mummified at that point. I got to give a big shout out and thank you to Studio 314. Who drops the super chat in there for us. We appreciate that. He says that 5 in the bucket for Josie, Pies, and Liberty. Thank you. Quest Fanning says that he's squared to Studio's contribution. Thank you very much for that, Fanning, as well. We're grateful to have you here. Thanks for watching the Wake Up America show. Make sure you click that like button and subscribe if you're joining us on one of our multi-channels that we're streaming to this morning. We're grateful to have the redheaded libertarian official, Josie, on the show today. She works at Timcast. Sounds like she's got a lot of exciting things in the works. You'll make sure you want to follow her over on Twitter and all her social media platforms so that you can get the big breaking news that she teased out on her show this morning. Josie, we're really excited to hear about that. Elon Musk is, in my opinion, Josie, one of us. And I know that he voted for not Andrew Tate. Who was Andrew Yang? Andrew Yang in the last election, I think. And then he did the Twitter space with Ron DeSantis the other day. He said nice things about Ron DeSantis. Do you think that is he supporting Ron DeSantis officially, or is he just kind of like facilitating his presidential announcement or something like that for Twitter? What are your thoughts on that?
I know Elon Musk is very involved when it comes to opposing transing children, which is why he followed me, which is why he likes Ron DeSantis. I don't know if he would put in if he'd actually endorse him or anything like that. I know he's invited all the candidates onto his stage to host or to break their campaigns or just to give like a town hall. I think he's a genuinely good human being, and there's not a lot of people at that level of success that you can say that about. I believe he tries to be centrist, tries to be moderate, tries to be objective, and he's not extreme at all, but when it comes to fighting extremes, he will go just as extreme to fight them. So and I think
really
he's seen what Ron
Do you think it's healthy to have DeSantis in the race, running, I guess, sort of to the right of Trump? If you look at how Trump is attacking DeSantis, he's attacking DeSantis from the left and saying DeSantis wants to cut your Social Security, and he's out saying DeSantis is going to kill Disney, which is the goose that lays the golden egg for Florida, and things like that. I mean, would you say that it's healthy to have DeSantis in the race, or how do you feel about the state of the primary right now?
I mean, I fled Massachusetts and came to Florida for DeSantis's policies. So I would love to see him continue to be my governor. Either way, I'm going to win. So I'd like to see him stay that. But I personally don't believe he can beat Trump, just because I've seen the polling numbers. I've seen the important polling numbers, and just the difference is just like it was every other year. So I believe if they compete against each other, Trump will get the nomination. I do believe DeSantis would put us in a better situation, though, although I just don't know his foreign policy well enough to go that far into it.
Well, that's a big question, because that was definitely, in terms of like holding my nose and voting for Trump in the last election, his foreign policy was one of the things that, sort of allowed me to, feel better about voting for Trump, despite my many differences and disagreements with him, and even trying to run against him in 2016. His foreign policy, definitely puts him at the top of the presidential contenders. Although DeSantis did come out and say that we shouldn't be spending more money in Ukraine, so that's a positive sign. But I would like to hear more definitive statements. In regards to 2024, though, next year, if it's Biden versus Trump again, Josie, I don't know if the Republicans are doing anything in order to try and counter the same tactics the Democrats used against us last time: ballot harvesting, absentee voting, mail-in ballots, and things like that. I don't know if the Republicans have learned their lesson from 2020, Josie. It looks like we're kind of headed towards a repeat of 2020, which would mean 4 more years of Joe Biden. Is that your take, or how do you feel about it?
I fear that's what's going to happen. I don't know if I know some of the states have put up precautions to prevent harvesting or meddling in the elections, or they've made IDs necessary. I mean, every country votes with IDs. Like, this is insane. That's how they're doing it. It's just identify yourself and vote as a citizen. Like, it's in the Constitution. It's when they even talk about the 19th Amendment, which I'm a huge fan of, but they say citizens in the 19th Amendment. They don't say visitors or immigrants or migrants. Like, it's citizens. It says it right there. It doesn't say people, which is another differentiation, because a lot of the amendments will say people when they're talking about your rights. This one specifically says citizens. So having to identify that is constitutional.
Josie, I still have a lot of friends in my previous political party, the Libertarian Party. There's a lot of people there that I respect and admire. Dave Smith worked for the Mises Caucus to take over the Libertarian Party, and I guess they'll have their own candidate as well. Do you think that the Libertarian Party has anything to offer for 2024, or no?
I like the approach that we're taking in the Libertarian Party with getting people into positions that are local and state level as opposed to federal level. There's a lot to undo before we'll ever see a libertarian candidate. I mean, getting a name out there, something always happens that gives it a bad rap, whether it was Gary Johnson and his Aleppo slip, or Jo Jorgensen and her actively anti-racial racist slip, whether it was any of those things. But what the Libertarian Party is doing is they're getting people in sheriff's department, in select boards, on school boards, school committee, that sort of stuff. That's where we're going to see the most change. And this is how the communists infiltrated. So we got to take some notes from them. They did a bottom-up approach, and they got into the school boards, they got into the select boards, and then they worked their way to the state offices, and they got into state senator, state representative, and then they got into federal. And they got jobs and at the highest point of every company, so they're everywhere. And that's how libertarians have to beat them, by playing their own game.
One of our listeners had a question for you, Josie, if you don't mind. Studio 314 asks you, how does Josie feel about Massey endorsing DeSantis?
I have a lot of respect for Massey, and I have a lot of respect for DeSantis. It helps me to know that Massey supports DeSantis, because I have the same views as Massey, and he's probably been able to ask more questions than I've been able to ask, and to get more information than I've been able And so it's actually a very positive note that Congressman Massey do that. It tells me that Ron DeSantis has some libertarian policies that I might not even know about.
Yeah, no kidding, because I don't think Massey would endorse lightly. However, I do remember, was it during the pandemic? I think Trump was ripping into Massey and attacking him and stuff as a rhino because he wouldn't support the lockdowns.
Third-rate politician, that's right. And he goes,
Third-rate
come on,
politician, yes.
at least a second-rate politician.
Exactly. That always made me laugh because I was like, he's not even second rate. He's so bad that he is third rate, down below the second. You got to, the one thing about Trump is that he would make America laugh again. And that was one of the nice things about the Trump presidency, was that we were constantly laughing either at him or with him, either way. Sometimes I do feel as if like a little bit of humor is something that we need in this country. And Josie, you certainly bring that. We love following your social accounts. Is there anything else that you'd like to share with our listeners today? We're running towards the end of the show here. Anything that you'd like to plug or talk about before we sign off today?
Well, you can follow me at TRHL Official over on Twitter. That's really where I do most things. I also work over at timcast.com, so you can head over there and smash that subscribe button and help support our work. And other than that, thank you. It's been a real joy to be on your show.
Yeah, thanks for getting up early and joining us over here at TRHL. It's been really exciting to watch your career, just because when I see you out there fighting the good fight for libertarians, and you're one of the libertarians who give libertarians a good name. So whenever I see your tweets or your posts or whatever media it is that you're working on, I never cringe. I'm always like, proud. You make me proud to be a libertarian, which is not something that you can say about a lot of libertarians out there. So. Would love to see you sometime soon. Hopefully we'll meet maybe on Timcast one day. And thank you again for getting up early. I'll try not to ask you all to be on all the time because I know it's very early for you, but maybe we'll have you on again when you're ready to break your big news.
That sounds great. I'd love that.
Great. Thanks very much, Josie. Have a wonderful day. Make sure you follow her. Josie, the redheaded libertarian official. Have a good one and a wonderful holiday weekend. Thanks a lot. Good morning, Rise and Freedom. Hope you enjoyed that interview there with our friend Josie, the redheaded libertarian. Boy, she's got a lot of exciting things going on. She's on a first-name basis with Elon Musk. She's got a huge fan base. I mean, it's exciting to see when our friends are successful, isn't it? We definitely wish her the best and all of the best in success. Now that she's working for Tim Pool, good God, man. She just went from like a little bit of following to just boom overnight. And we wish her, again, absolutely the best. And we're just thankful to have a little bit of her time. Glad you enjoyed that interview. Don't forget that the Wake Up America show is brought to you in part by our friends over at Lear Capital, your precious metals dealer. I endorse and recommend Lear Capital because not only do they have great prices and great customer service, but they make it so easy for you to get into the precious metals market. I was reading the news this morning about how central banks across the country are stocking up their gold reserves like it's going out of style. Do you think central bankers don't know what they're doing? Do you think that the smartest minds in the world that get together and run all these shadowy international organizations don't know what they're doing when they're buying gold like it's going out of style? 5% increase on gold this year. If you had bought Lear Capital when I was telling you to back in January, you'd already be sitting pretty. It's a great way to hedge against inflation. And if you don't trust the Biden economy while he's still the president, and you think that there's a chance he might be president again for another 4 years, gold is a great way to protect your savings from the Biden economy. You can find out more information by visiting the website that I've got pulled up for you on the screen. learaustin.com. That's LEARAUSTIN.com. But if you're a super fan of the Wake Up America show, here's what I'd like to ask as a personal favor. Give him a call today and say, hey, you know what? I love watching the Wake Up America show. It's a great show. Not only is this show amazing, but it's also set in a beautiful backdrop that's donated by the lovely Scott Fawn, who we appreciate very much, and who's walking back there right now. We know what side of the bed we're buttered on here. Thank you, Scott. Lear Capital is a great way to protect your retirement portfolio by investing in a gold IRA. Visit them now at learaustin.com or give them a call and say, hey, thank you so much for supporting the Wake Up America show. Thank you, Scott Fawn, for supporting the Wake Up America show as well. Call that number, 1-800-885-2175. That's 1-800-885-2175. Call that number today and let them know that you'd like to know more about how to invest in gold and silver. And don't worry, they're not going to spam you with phone calls all the time. They'll only call you once, and after that, they'll send you emails just to let you know what's going on with the gold markets. And if you're ready to sell your gold and silver too, they'll buy it back from you at any time, tax-free. There's that number on the screen, 1-800-885-2175. That's 1-800-885-2175. Well, there's a lot of exciting things going on with the Wake Up America show as well. Sorry, I hit that commercial button there a little bit too early there. Looks like we've got a few more minutes left to go on the show. What was your favorite part of the program today? I think we need to play the video of me pulling. People are comparing this to like Clint Eastwood from Gran Torino. I don't think it was that serious, but you can hear, this is me on Memorial Day yesterday. Just happened to be cleaning my M1 Garand after I had been doing some target shooting with it before. And three young people come up onto my property on an ATV and whip out a gun and start pointing it around everywhere. And this was my response. Take a look.
Hey guys, what you doing?
Hey guys, how you doing? What are you doing?
Okay. Did you bring a gun with you onto my property?
There's George.
Is that a gun you were pointing on my property? Sure looked like it.
Thought I handled the situation fairly well, right? It came up there just, with politely. I've got the M1 Garand there in my arm. Look at that. Look at that junk in the trunk. There it is. Boom.
Hey guys, what you doing? Okay. Did you bring a gun with you onto my property?
Did you bring a gun with you onto my property? Is that a gun you were pointing at my property? They're like, no. Sure looked like it. There it is. All right. AP, get off my lawn. Don't forget to visit our sponsors there at Lear Capital, learaustin.com, LEARAUSTIN.com. We're going to run now. It's been a great day, great show. I'll definitely be back tomorrow, but I might not be here on Thursday. I haven't decided yet. I think I'm going to go fishing with the Pops. I'll let you know about the schedule as we go. Have a good one, guys. Thanks so much. Appreciate you. Don't forget also visit ap4libertyshop.com. At ap4libertyshop.com, we got all your patriotic gear right there. I should have been wearing that shirt. I don't know which would have been more epic. The all gun laws are infringement shirt while I was scaring the gun-toting ruffians off my property, or the American flag one. I think the American flag one was really nice. But you can get your all gun laws or infringement shirts over at ap4libertyshop.com. That's AP, the number 4, ap4libertyshop.com. And we'll see you tomorrow on the Wake Up America show at wakeupamericashow.com. Bye, guys.
I'm Donald Trump, and I approve this message. Believe me, Austin Peterson is the best. He's got the greatest Wake Up America show I've ever seen. Whenever I tune in the mornings and watch the live stream, let me tell you, he has got the absolute best content. I love his guests. It's just a total blast to watch, and I highly endorse and recommend the Wake Up America show. It's terrific, believe me.
Step right up, ladies and gents, to learn about the coolest president yet. He's not just any old prez, he's Calvin Coolidge, and boy oh boy is he different from the rest. He was quiet as a mouse, but don't you underestimate his power. He knew how to handle money, and he didn't waste an hour. He cut taxes, lowered debt, and balanced the budget with ease. No wonder the roaring 20s brought such prosperity and peace. But don't take my word for it. Grab a copy of Calvin the Coolest President and see for yourself. It's a children's book that'll make you smile and help your little ones learn about wealth. You can find it on Amazon Kindle or get your hands on a paperback at apforlibertyshop.com. So come on down and get yourself a copy of the book that's making waves all around town. You won't regret it, so get ready to be floored because Calvin Coolidge, well, folks, he really scored.
I'm a public defender.
I am a public defender.
I'm proud to be a public defender.
80% of Americans accused of a crime will get appointed a public defender.
Everybody from a speeding ticket to capital murder.
For every dollar we spend on public defenders, we spend $3 on prosecutors.
Public defenders have to do pretty much everything on their own.
Social workers, counselors.
Investigating is another piece of it.
The average public defender holds 300 cases annually.
You never feel like there's enough time.
Public defenders have health issues all the time.
A lot of people give up and say, I can't do this work anymore.
Gideon's Promise trains, mentors, and supports public defenders.
There are a lot of people who say that they would not still be public defenders, but for Gideon's Promise.
It's fueled me to continue on in this fight.
Gideon's Promise has changed the face of public defense.
People see us as troublemakers.
Good trouble only.
We don't make it easy. It should not be easy to take away someone's liberty.
Ever hear the one about the frog? Put a frog in a pot of boiling water and it'll jump right out.
Here's my resume again.
But put a frog in a pot of cool water and slowly heat it up, and that frog will boil. It's a lie. But as a metaphor for us and all that we go through as veterans,
The real-world experience.
it's a story that rings true. We make excuses for how we feel. We push everything down. We tell ourselves the lie that it's easier to stay in that boiling water, to disconnect. And some days, maybe it is. But you've never been interested in easy. Make no mistake, reaching out is hard. Do it anyway. You're not alone. You've got this. You are not a frog.
Find resources at va.gov/reach.